There's this really frustrating right-wing narrative that I hear all the time, that young people are lazy. If only they were willing to work, like we did when we were young, the older generations, they would be fine. They would be able to move out of their parents' house, save up for a deposit to get a house of their own, or go to university without needing to take out massive student loans. But they don't want to. It's nonsense. Now, I know, I'm not a young person. Look how deeply etched these lines are in my forehead. But I do work with young people every day, and it's obvious to me that life is much, much harder now than it was for me growing up. Since 2008, there's been a financial crash, 14 years of Tory austerity, Brexit, COVID, and now a cost of living crisis. It hasn't been an easy time for Gen Z to grow up. Now here we are in 2026 with one of the most brutal job markets I've ever seen. Today I'm going to talk about Gen Z and explain why they're having such a tough time getting into work. Spoiler, it's not because they're lazy. So this is such a classic Daily Mail article, a real rage bait worthy headline trying to perpetuate the idea that a whole generation is lazy. There's nothing wrong with the economy. It's fine. It's just that Gen Z want to start on 40k a year. They're so entitled. They don't want to work their way up like we did when we were young. See more Daily Mail on Google. Save us as a preferred source. Yeah, preferred source of toilet paper. This article was apparently written by their senior news reporter. Sorry dude, but you can either be a reporter or you can work for the Daily Mail, but you can't be both. I mean, this is just such a lazy article, something they're accusing Gen Z of being. They're internet obsessed! Because boomers, Gen X and millennials, we don't waste hours and hours of our day scrolling through social media and posting nonsense on Facebook. We would never. I mean, their logic about Gen Z being job shy falls apart very quickly. So if you're like me and you're a millennial, or you're in Gen X, or you're a boomer, think back to the first jobs that you did when you were growing up. How many of them still exist? Society has massively changed, just in the last 20 years. A major review of youth unemployment has been published by Milburn, and it's summarised really well in this article in The Independent. Well, I think it is, once you get rid of the annoying video that pops up and begins autoplaying. One of the key findings is that there has been a sharp decline in the number of entry-level jobs. The report says that there are 1.6 million fewer low and medium-skilled jobs in the economy than in previous years. Entry-level jobs, the kind of job you need at the beginning of your career because you don't have any experience and you need to develop the skills to be able to do a more senior role. The kind of role that many in Gen Z are looking for at the moment. So, senior Daily Mail reporter, if you bothered to do some actual reporting rather than knocking up some lazy right-wing nonsense on your keyboard, you would realise why many in a generation aren't going out to work. The boss of the retailer Next has spoken about the dramatic fall in entry-level jobs that he sees. He said that at Next, they used to get 10 applications for every job that opened up. Now they get 19. Oof. So you're competing against 18 other people at an age when you don't have any real work experience. How do you differentiate yourself from 18 other people when you haven't had a job yet and if you're still studying? Good luck. And looking back at the entry-level jobs that I was able to do when I was growing up, it makes sense. I got into work when I turned 13 years old. My first job was delivering newspapers every morning, 7 days a week. I didn't enjoy having to wake up at 6 a.m. every morning, but I did enjoy being paid £15 a week. Now I know, £15 a week isn't much, and it doesn't go far in 2026. But this was back in 1997. You could do quite a bit with £15 a week then. I bought lots of games for my Nintendo 64. Yes, the original Smash Brothers was top tier. I still maintain that Kirby was massively overpowered. I also bought plenty of tapes and VHS cassettes. Look, it was a different time, okay? But society has changed massively since then. How many people order newspapers to be delivered every morning? Not too many now. We're happy enough reading the news on our phones. The result of that is there aren't too many paperboys out there in 2026. So Gen Alpha, I'm sorry, but I don't think this is going to be your first job. And if you're in Gen Z, this probably wasn't your first job either. Another important entry-level job for me was a temporary Christmas job I got when I was 16. I only did the job on a Sunday for about 10 weeks, but it got me some experience in retail, which helped me get a permanent job in retail later. This job was at a big store that sold thousands of items. Customers would browse big laminated catalogues, pay for what they wanted, and collect their items from me at the collection point. Why were the catalogues laminated? What did they think customers would be doing when they were shopping? Actually, no, let's not go there. That store no longer exists. In fact, that whole shopping centre doesn't exist anymore. It was demolished and then left derelict for years, right in the centre of the city. Gen Z, sorry, but you're probably not going to do this as your first job. And you won't be doing any of the hundreds of other roles that were lost when that shopping centre closed down. My next entry-level job I got when I was 17, and it was really important for me. I worked on the checkout at a supermarket. I know, it doesn't sound impressive, but it was massively important. I was able to effectively work as many hours as I wanted. When I was busy with sixth form, I just worked weekends. It's worth pointing out that Sundays paid time and a half back then. That is not the case anymore. Lol, capitalism. When I wasn't so busy with sixth form, I worked the weekends and then 3 evenings a week. I was able to save loads of money, well, by an 18-year-old standards, and that helped me pay for university. If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have been able to support myself. Mum and Dad, they both left school when they were 15. Morally, I felt like it would have been wrong for me to expect them to fund my time at university. In 2026, the job still exists, but there's been a massive drop in the number of people doing it. A supermarket doesn't need a dozen checkout lanes open anymore. Just a couple will do, with most people going through self-checkout. You only need a couple of people looking after those. The final entry-level job I got was in an office doing data entry. It was easy and it was boring, but I was hired the week after I came home from university. Wow, I must have put together a strong application or blown their socks off at interview to get hired so quickly. Nope, it was nepotism. Mum worked in that office and knew that there was a vacancy in that team. She spoke to a line manager and I started the next Monday, no questions asked. I didn't need to put together a CV or memorize long made-up answers for competency-based questions. Who needs skills or experience when nepotism will get you to where you want to be? I left that job after a year to pursue an opportunity abroad, and it wasn't long after I left that job was eliminated by automation, a full 10 years before anyone was talking about AI in the workplace. So it's 2026, you're Gen Z, and you want an entry-level job. Well, being a paperboy, working that temporary Christmas job, doing as many hours as you want in the supermarket, doing an easy data entry job, how many of those opportunities still exist? There are far fewer entry-level jobs. Hospitality jobs, common jobs for young people, especially for university students, well, they're on the slide too. In April 2026, 66% of hospitality businesses said they planned to cut jobs. 1 in 7 said that they would close. This is because it's a very tough environment for this industry. Changes by the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, to business rates, along with increases to the minimum wage, is putting pressure on hospitality businesses. 42% of hospitality businesses said that they would reduce their trading hours. The cost of living crisis, which shows no sign of slowing down, is also not helping. I noticed that I go out to meals with my family less often. A trip to the pub on a Saturday is now the exception rather than the rule. So what can we do? Well, firstly, be kind to young people. This young person calling into LBC shows just how tough economically, but also mentally, the current job market is for young people.
I apply every single day. I'm applying for jobs. I trained as a physician associate, and that's got its own set of complications. But I'm looking for any job that I can possibly get that'll give me a career and not just part-time 0 hours work. It's so hard to get your foot in the door. I'm lucky if I get a rejection email nowadays.
How many are you sending out, would you say?
In the last year, I've probably sent over 100 applications to all sorts of different jobs. The majority do not bother replying.
Can you imagine being in this position? Putting in hundreds of applications and getting nothing. Often companies not even giving you the courtesy of a rejection. Your application just went out into the void, never to be seen again. Online, I often see young people talking about their parents not understanding and giving them terrible advice. Advice like, you just need to print out copies of your CV, knock on doors, hand them out. That hasn't been a thing for 25 years. Just because you did that in 1982 and it worked, doesn't mean it will in 2026. Everything is online now. We don't live in that world anymore. Resist AI. This is only going to displace more and more entry-level jobs. The next time you see an advert and at the bottom it says it was generated with AI tools, boycott. Boycott the company, boycott the product. If you're in the pub and you see such an advert on the screen, if you're at the cinema waiting for the film to start and you see such an advert, boo the hell out of it. There is a growing backlash to AI adverts. Be part of it. If you're a young person, be kind to yourself. This is not your fault. Don't give up. Do what you can to protect your mental health. I wish you all the best. I hope this too shall pass.